Hello and welcome to Packs and Recreation, and we are back, baby, this time in the spooky season. And sadly, I don't have my Duskmourn mats yet, which is really a shame because I think this is the set that I bought the most stuff of because I like the aesthetic so much and the theme and so on. Even though the 80s thing is kind of extra. But you will hear all about that as we keep opening stuff from Duskmourn because I've been yapping the entire year about it, so now is your time to suffer. So I needed to get something scary, so nothing scarier than a demonic tutor. But to be really scary, it should be a playmat of a Jeweled Lotus or a Mana Crypt, right? But don't have one of those. Have a lot of Mana Crypts and Jeweled Lotus, no? Well, the good thing is that I only use them to play with, so I never really like them that much either. So, 50-50. Up to you and your opinion. I guess that if you invested in them, it's certainly a pain in the ass. And if you just play with them, it's okay-ish, depending on how much you pay for them. If you play against them and never had them, I guess you are just like, yeah, boy. But yeah, so the reality of Magic the Gathering. And talking about Commander, today, as you can see by the title, we go full Commander decks because these are the decks that I have been waiting for the entire year. And they revealed the titles, and I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. And then they revealed the images and so on. I was like, okay, I'm still interested. And here we are. So, and here is the review, right? So we're going to go one by one. Reminder, the first one is always the slowest one because I show you like the content and so on, and then the others are just like straight to the cards and to the strategy and so on, right? So we have 4 decks because this is the normal thing now. You always have 4 decks. Like I remember when I was like, well, some sets have 2 decks, and then you have the big set of the year, which is like 5 or 4, like New Capenna or March of the Machine. And Wizards now is like, no, everything has 4. Because Commander is for 4 players, so you buy 4, you play with your friends, that's how it is. Like, okay, Wizards. Which, as long as they keep coming up with interesting ways to build decks or interesting strategies, because they can do something that most of us can't, because they invent at least 10 new cards on each of these, right? I wished it was more, but well, they have to release a new set of 4 Commander decks every 2 months. So yeah, I guess 10 cards is 10 cards each is okay, which is 40 new cards every 2 months. That's something to behold for sure. So most of them are 2 colors, and one is the exception, right? So Miracle Worker, Death Toll, Jump Scare, and Endless Punishment. And we're going to do them in alphabetical order. As usual, I already play with them a little since launch, and with friends and not so friends. And with one of these decks, I don't even know if they're my friends anymore, which we're going to cover in a second. I'm really all over the place with this theme. I really like Duskmourn as a theme. I don't like it as a plane because I don't think it makes, like, Ravnica is already kind of a stretch. It's like, oh, it's a city, it's a planet. It's like, well, it's a planet. It's like, no. It's a city. It's like, yeah, a city and a planet, right? So like the planet is the plane, right? It's like multiverse thing. It's like, no. It's just a city. It's like, well, what about the ghouls and so on? They live in the forests outside of the city. It's like, well, that also counts as a city. So you have the outskirts and the city. And the city is ever growing, so that means that the outskirts also grow with it, apparently, I guess. And whenever you try to go up, as they try to, you see the endless, the blind eternities, right? So here is more or less that, but worse because like it's a house. The entire thing is a house, but then you will see some of the lands and cards and so on. It's like that's the biggest house I ever seen. So. Yeah, but I like the theme. So we're going to look into the thing. 4 decks. By alphabetical order, we should go Death Toll, Endless Punishment, Jump Scare, and Miracle Worker. Unless my ABC is failing me, which I hope not. So let's go with Death Toll first. One of the most divisive decks here. As you can see, this copy of the deck took a hit. This is the deck. I actually, believe it or not, I had to play more with this deck because I was like, and well, let me show you as we open them. But by the way, they went back to this form factor, the horizontal one, which they normally use for things like Doctor Who or March of the Machine, precisely because they came with Play Chase cards, and now they come with Archenemy cards, which is actually a great match in terms of flavor with the set because of Valgavoth, which is this guy, by the way, which is the big bad of the set. So not bad. So Death Toll is black and green. Fill your graveyard, reanimate monsters. So that thing right away is not my cup of tea. I'm not that much of a graveyard player. So that, like, disclaimer, I am biased, right? And then you have Winter, Cynical Opportunity as the commander, which we're going to check in a second when we open this. But we're back to the fact that we have a fake card here, which is cool. I guess you can cut it and have it as a proxy if that's your thing. And then do what it takes to survive. Battle your friends with powerful creatures and spectacular spells in commander, blah, blah, blah. Bring Winter to the battlefield and send your cold dead cards into the graveyard to activate Delirium abilities. Return your heavy hitters from the great beyond and rise victorious. Right? So also you have Archenemy, which is, it's not a commander mode similar to Plane Chase, but certainly adapts to commander because everything is commander now, which I'm fine with. I mostly play commander, but it's funny that Wizard is like, we can do Archenemy here too. It's like, yeah, you can. And it's funny, I guess that the motivation came because Valgavoth kind of gives the vibes of Nicol Bolas. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, the board game thingy for Nicol Bolas, it was called Archenemy, right? Archenemy Nicol Bolas. And I guess that the idea was to release multiple ones, like Archenemy Nicol Bolas and then Archenemy something else. And yeah, the format was 3v1 and, 3 Planeswalkers versus Nicol Bolas and so on. We're going to do this one of these days and review it, but I need to play with it first. So there is that. And I guess they look at that and the whole theme of Valgavoth, which looks weirdly enough like the demonic tutor, and went like, yeah, sure, put Archenemy cards in there. So let's see the contents of the box and let's see what's in the box. So let me try to open this properly, because last time I opened them, I actually never know how to open them properly. I guess let's start with the bottom. Yeah, it's through the bottom. So 10 points for Gryffindor. So there goes that. Then this is the whole reason for this form factor, even though I think this kind of fits in the other form factor. These are the Archenemy cards. I'm going to open them in a second so you can see they come in a black envelope. And you have this thing, which is kind of cool, not gonna lie. This thing looks kind of cool. And I love when they actually go the extra mile. It's like, since we're printing already, just do the thing, right? You know what I mean? Because you can kind of see it, right? Like if you want to go that route, right? But it's cool. And sometimes makes it kind of painful to just throw these pieces of cardboard, which is also cardboard. Then you have a bunch of counters, a lot of +1/+1s and Death Touch. And then you have these emblems, or I don't know what you want to call them, for the rooms. So locked room in the colors of, the deck, which is black and green. The deck itself, this is kind of cool. I don't know if anyone's going to use this but certainly cool. It's better than just using a coin or something. Kind of cool. And as an extra piece of trivia, they are not. I know what you may be thinking when you saw this. You're like, oh, okay, so locked on one side, unlocked on the other. Like, no, it's just locked. So you assume that it doesn't have the card is unlocked, right? So that's kind of the thing. It kind of sucks, but you could imagine, since the interior is white, they're not going to print on both sides. What, for you to have nice cardboard? What is this? A board game company? So the insert, which we love. We love our inserts. So let's see. Special rules, Archenemy. So here it explains how to play Archenemy. I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert of Archenemy because I only play 3 games of Arcanemy in my life. And it was not Commander Arcanemy, it was just Arcanemy. And 2 of them were with that board game that I showed you. So it was like the default Arcanemy. One of them was with a friend that had like a cube-ish thing for Arcanemy, and we played, right? So Arcanemy is a magic format where a team of 3 players face off against an all-powerful Arcanemy player. When playing alongside the Commander format, the Arcanemy starts with 60 and the other players share 60 life as a team. Before the game begins, decide who will be played as the Arcanemy, then shuffle the deck of oversized schemes. The Arcanemy always goes first. They set a scheme in motion at the beginning of their first main phase each turn by flipping the top card of the scheme face up. They resolve the effects of the scheme, which gives them a powerful boost against their multiple opponents. The other players take a shared turn, working together to take down the Arcanemy. Will you survive? Blah, blah, blah. And then you have the rules of Commander. Now, it's a very self-explanatory. Then you have, I'm going to talk about that in a second. Mostly when we come to another deck, that is certainly the Arcanemy deck here. Winter, Cynical Opportunist. Mixed feelings with the card, with the art. Not that the art is bad, like the artists are freaking talented, but I don't know. Like, the thing that I like the least about Duskmourn is the humans. Like, all the humans in Duskmourn are like 80s. I get it, but I just like my horrors and creatures and monsters, right? So Winter has managed to survive for over a decade using only his intellect after being trapped within the house's walls when he was a teenager. He has seen firsthand the desperation can accomplish, blah, blah, blah. So you can read this if you want, so pause it, otherwise this video is going to be an audiobook and it's going to be very long of me just reading lore. But I love this part, right? I don't want anyone from Wizards that comes across this video and goes like, oh yeah, like no one cares about the inserts, let's cut that as well. Because as you may have realized, now we don't have some stuff, right? Like we don't have the life counter. So remember this envelope? You normally had the collector booster sample, and then you have the quote-unquote deck box, and then you have a life counter, right? And like, to be honest, these deck boxes, although this one is kind of cool, I'm gonna lie, the art here is on point. Like, these deck boxes, to call them somehow, are kind of cool, but useless. So normally what I do with them is I just put tokens or something, and I put this and the life counter. Now there is no life counter anymore. So thank you, Wizards. The same way there is no plastic commander anymore, or oversized commander. We just get full size cards, I guess. So you have this, which, you know, it's something. Now let's see what we pull from the collector booster sample pack. As usual, if this is the first time you see a video of this is a sample pack, as it says literally, so, and it's random, right? So just because I open this box and I get whatever I pull here, it doesn't mean that you're going to get those cards. It's random. This is literally, the first one is free kind of thing with a drug, you know what I mean? It's like, just to get you into the collector booster thing. Well, I pull a mythic, that's something. The Roller Crusher Ride. For X2 on a red, legendary enchantment. It has Delirium, so sadly it's red, so it can't work with this deck. If a source you control will deal non-combat damage to a permanent or player while there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, it deals double that damage instead. When the Roller Coaster Ride enters, it deals X damage to each of up to X target creatures. And a foil? Yep, is a very subtle foil, but it's foil. A foil Growing Dread, which also is not compatible with this deck, but again, it's random. Like, I will be surprised if they are compatible with this deck. So, not bad. 2 enchantments. Actually, this one can go into the enchantment deck, although it's kind of pointless. This one is kind of cool. Fun fact, even though I love, and you will see when we open the collector boosters, even though I love this set, I love only half of it. Like, this TV thing is like, right? Like, it doesn't excite me at all, my friends. Like, yikes. So, put this thing to the side, and let's see the Arcanemy cards. It's going to shuffle through them, right? If you want to see any of them, just pause the video. I mean, if you want to see them, you already saw like a spoiler or something, so not much point in there. Gonna love the back. I'm gonna love how they, through the years, they're like, okay, we can do a better back now, boys, and they just keep doing the old school, like, ugly thing. I love this kind of back, don't get me wrong. Very 2000s, very OG Magic. Choose your champion. So the thing is with Arcanemy, and again, we're going to talk about that with the next deck more, but Commander a lot of times has an Arcanemy, even though it's accidental or not so accidental. Like there's always one player that is like, you know, goes far ahead or goes very aggressive, and everyone goes like, well, I guess that person is the Arcanemy, right? And everyone turns to that person. So in this case, this is a literal format for that, and your way to get advantage is the scheme. So per turn, you pull one, and if you have all 4 decks, you get a bunch of schemes. Some of these schemes are reprints, just with different art, and some of these schemes are new, right? So choose your champion. When you set this scheme in motion, target opponent chooses a player. Until your next turn, only you and the chosen player can cast spells and attack with creatures. And the fun thing is that target opponent chooses a player, so you can make someone pick someone that is not like, you don't pick your opponent, someone else picks your opponent, but they can pick themselves, right? So it's interesting. Plots that span centuries. There's a lot of like very beautiful cards in here. The art is just quite there. As I said, like you can pause and see, right? Like there's not much to analyze here. You don't need to play with these cards. It's just like a very nice thing to have. I really like that we have cards like this. I don't like the way they're cut though, as you can see here in the borders against my gloves. They are like badly cut, but whatever. So again, no one collects these, right? Even the top, see? Like everything is badly cut here. Anything that's above magic size, I just like, whatever. Just go with a pair of scissors. No one cares. I am never alone. Rot like the scum you are. You live only because I will it. My will is irresistible. My wings enfold all. And your mistake is my triumph. So this is similar to playing chase. Like playing chase came with a die, so at least you had, you know, more meat there. Even though the die was whatever, like you can just use any die and just say like this phase is chaos, this phase is playing chase, but they give you a die. So I guess there was more value there if you want, just if you conjure stuff, because you had the die, the cards, the plastic commander, and the life wheel. So wizards, like. Give us back our stuff. Like this is a game about collecting stuff. Whenever you don't want to collect stuff, we just either print proxies or play online. So you should really start like, you know, don't take it as a threat, but like you should really start, you know, pampering your players that actually buy your products a little bit. Just suggestion. So commander and second commander, and then popular Magic formats, the super mega useful cards, and then the tokens. Now, since we have the box description, so the newer thing that they have here from like a year or something that describes what the deck does, this has lost a little meaning, but we can see what the deck is all about by looking at the tokens, which is one of my favorite things to do with a new deck, even more if you have no context about them. I do have, for better or worse. So you have insects, shapeshifters, great art, which looks like a mutant from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that I can't remember the name. It was called Seymour or something. Insect, ooze, another insect, this is when it's flying, spider, which are not insects, by the way, tree folk, spider, insect, shapeshifter, ooze, insect. So there's something here that generates a bunch of insects. I will let you guess what. Elemental, bird, elemental, bird, demon, bird, demon, bird. So a lot of birds, a lot of demons. Let's see what's up in there. So tokens go in there. Let's see commander and co-commander, and let's talk about the deck itself, right? Or co-commander, secondary commander, auxiliary commander, alternative commander, whatever you want to call it. So Winter Cynical Opportunist is the main here. As you can see now, we get 2 foil cards in full art, so that's the replacement for the things that we're losing, but whatever. So for 2, 1 black, 1 green is a 2/5 that has Death Touch, and whenever Winter attacks, mill 3 cards. It has Delirium. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile any number of cards from your graveyard with 4 or more card types among them. If you do, put a permanent card from among them onto the battlefield with a finality counter on them. So you can see what the whole play is here, and this is why I don't really like this deck, but it's a me thing. I don't like playing with the graveyard, and I don't like milling myself. I don't like when people mill me, so I don't like milling myself. So, but again, it's down to preference, right? Like, some people really love milling strategies, and to be fair, cheating stuff out by milling it is a very solid strategy. So I'm not saying it's worse, it's just I don't like it. So if anything, I'm an idiot. So that's kind of the thing. So you have Death Touch, so it makes it a very solid defender at 2/5, right? You put it in the battlefield, turn 4, maybe turn 2 or 3, but we don't have Jewel Lotus anymore. So not really much of a point there. But like, if you're very good at turn 2, you can have it there. Maybe, with luck, turn 3, but if not, turn 4, you should be able to pull your commander. Is a 2/5 Death Touch, so he's going to sit there. You want to send him to attack. Since he has Death Touch, you kind of can send him to a lot of weird situations because, 2/5, so even just in the exchange, he's likely to overcome most things. Plus, he has Death Touch, so anything that's bigger than him, people need to start considering it. Then, yes, of course, then there is the whole debate about, well, if my creature dies, but I kill your commander. It's like, well, I can call him again. So, like, there is a dance here, which is nice. And then, since you're always milling, then you exile cards from your graveyard, and then that allows you to put a permanent from among them onto the battlefield with a finality counter on it. So finality counter means that then if it dies, or if it gets removed, then it gets exiled instead of going to graveyard, so you don't have an endless cycle there. The interesting wording here is that you will expect that it will be a creature what you bring back with the finality counter, but it's not, it's a permanent. So you can bring pretty much anything, which we're going to talk about in a second. So the commander, in my opinion, is good, I just don't resonate with it. And then you have Renmo, Creaking Nest, which for 3, 1 black, 1 green is a 5/5 with Menace and Reach. So it's kind of a very, like, just right off the bat is a very different commander from Winter, which is the main one. Here is more of an offensive thing, right? Because 5/5, Menace, Reach is cool as a defensive strategy, but when Renmo enters the battlefield, and whenever you play a card with 2 or more card types, each player creates a tapped 2/2 Blackbird creature token with flying. The tokens are goaded for the rest of the game. So this one is a completely different beast of a commander. And it's funny because one thing that I do when I play with these decks is I try to play as many games as possible, it's an endeavor because a commander game can be like 30 minutes if you're lucky, 2 hours, maybe 5 hours. I actually had a commander game that was like 7 hours long. I was like, Jesus Christ! And like, it got to a point that we just assumed that we were going to be there the whole day and so on. That was the longest, I think. It was like an entire day playing the same freaking thing. And yes, it was mostly because there was a life gain deck and there was a stalling deck. No one had a Platinum Angel though, so there was no Honolulu situation. But here, this one is interesting. Like, what we try to do is I play some games I try to rotate the decks to get the feeling of them, and then since now there are 4, so that makes my life easier, I guess. The 3 people that are playing with me, I ask them to play with the decks, right? And like to give me their thoughts and so on. I see them playing, so I try to play at least with all of them once or twice, ideally twice, and if I can get more games in, the better. But there's only so much time, and so much people can like bother to play with the precons with you until. Then sometimes I just keep testing and then people bring their own decks, which is cool as well because you need to test them against like real things, not only against themselves. And I like to shift the commander from time to time, right? So I play like the ratio normally is like 2-1. in terms of like games that I played, like 2 with this, 1 with this. And it was a completely different vibe, right? And you can tell, very defensive, very look for the graveyard kind of thing. And here is more like, okay, so first time it comes in, boom, and whenever you play cards, so if you have both at the same time on the graveyard, on the battlefield, it creates interesting situations for your dynamics. But if you only have one, which is likely because, one is the commander, the other is not, and so on, this one is just interesting. Like, it's just a chunky thing that is there. It's very dangerous. Ironically, it has menace, but its ability doesn't trigger by attacking. It's just by entering. And whenever you play a card with 2 or more card types, which this deck is full of because it's to trigger Delirium, right? So not that bad. So this is kind of a Delirium trigger that is not really a Delirium trigger. So it benefits from the fact that there are cards for Delirium in this deck, but it's not a Delirium card, which is nice. I don't like when the 2 commanders do the same. Now, it's interesting that, it has menace and reach, which is great because you create birds for each player, and then they are just goaded, so they need to keep attacking each other, which feels like a strategy for another deck in this collection, let's call it. The thing is that you have a 5/5 with reach, right? And even menace, so if they want to block with your own birds, the thing is, you can generate a bunch of birds that can make you trouble. So this commander seems very aggressive, but apparently the best way to play it is maybe aggressive at the beginning, but the moment birds start appearing, they can attack you, but they can't defend you, right? So you just sit with Renmo there and let them kill each other with the birds. It's likely that they can block each other with the birds, which is, something. But then, then it's all about the base. Then it's all about the exchange in there, because maybe they don't want to block because they want the birds, and then they have to keep attacking each other. And now it's a very bad commander whenever the situation goes down to 1v1, because then those birds, they have a lot of them, and you can just cover them all with your commander. Then you're in trouble, my friend. But And now for the deck itself. So as you can imagine, it's a deck all about graveyard and Delirium. The secondary commander is kind of playing a different game, but can benefit from this. However, you can feel that the deck is really leaning more towards winter. So I will say it's like 75 towards winter. You have cards here that, the idea is for you to cheat them. Some of the new cards in here, demonic. I love the Kindred enchantment thing. Whenever 1 or more demons you control attack a player, if you draw a card, and lose 1 life. At the beginning of your end step, you get a 5/5 demon creature token with flying. Then mill 2 cards. If 2 cards that share all their card types were milled this way, sacrifice Demon Covenant. So you have a lot of plays around this, and this is pretty good. I don't know if this deck satisfies the needs of the people that play with this sort of strategy, like Delirium and so on. Delirium, which I feel kind of cheated, because Delirium in my head is like a Innistrad mechanic, and this set feels like a mansion that should be in Innistrad, but they're like, no, it's a different play. However, the mechanics, right, is like, oh, well, Delirium is here, of course. It's like, sure. It makes sense because horrors, right, and all that. But so you have a lot of assistive type of things here, right? Things that just make sense. Like you may look at the top card of your library at any time, which makes sense because you want to mill it or not. So you need to get ready for that. And you may cast spells from the top of the library by sacrificing a non-land permanent in addition to paying the other costs and other things like that. You have rooms. Rooms are a new type of thing from Duskmourn, a new type of thing, a new type of card. And the main reason why we have this, if I can, the main reason why we have this. So this is supposed to be to put it like this, right? Like this, so that, half the card is locked. You don't need that, by the way, but the fact that they included it is kind of nice. So when you play an enchantment room, they actually explain it. So reading the card explains the card, but just in case, you may cast either half, that door unlocks on the battlefield. As a sorcery, you may pay the mana cost to unlock the other one. So you can just have it there, and and then you unlock the other, and they are there. And I like the idea, and I like that it's very flavorful. I love when they tie mechanics with flavor, and it's a mansion, it's full of rooms, blah blah blah. The only thing that I'm kind of sad, which is within reason, I mean it's not their fault, is that the art is very small. So it's like, this is pretty, I guess it's pretty too. So yeah. Whenever one or more cards are put into your graveyard from your library, each opponent loses 1 life for each card type among those cards. So this card is perfect for this deck. And when you unlock this door, mill 3 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this card is, well, imagine, is handmade for this deck, which but that's the good thing. If you already had a deck with Delirium, or you just want to build one, you have a good foundation here. So it's that type of deck, right? Like a bunch of enchantment creatures and horrors. Everything uses Delirium to a degree, or at least fuels your Delirium, which is great, right? And the flavor is right on spot. Like there are cards in here that you could tell like they are not from Duskmourn. Like obviously all the new ones are from Duskmourn, but like others are clearly not. And those you can be like, okay. Like obviously they have some expensive cards in here that the idea is to cheat them. And then you have one of the most wanted reprints in here, not Obnixilis, which, fun fact, I always say Obnixilis, sorry, and it's Obnixilis. But actually, Professor Onyx, which I know is Liliana, but in my head, every time I read Professor Onyx, I think about Clue or Cluedo, and it's like, Professor Onyx in the library with that chandelier, right? It's like, sure. So one of the expensive reprints in here, this deck is one with the like 3 or 4 heavy hitters, like heavy hitters meaning 10-buck cards, or at least they were. Since Winter says permanents, you can actually cheat the Planeswalkers, which is not bad. Actually, Planeswalkers are a different type of card, so they also count for this. And if you have been looking at it, and then you have Reanimate, which is the perfect card for this, right? Just bring back stuff from the graveyard right there. This is another big boy here, the Whip of Erebos, or Erebos. Creatures you control have lifelink, which for 2 and 2 black, and then you pay again the same price, 2 and 2 black, and tap, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. If it will leave the battlefield exiled instead of putting it anywhere else, activate only as a sorcery. So this card is expensive. Well, was expensive at least. Expensive, quote unquote, right? And it kind of works with the deck. However, in 2 of the decks that I like with this thing, one of them me, the other one other person, the Whip of Erebos works, but it feels like it's counterintuitive to the deck. Like, yes, you're cheating stuff from the graveyard, but then it gets exiled right away. So unless you're cheating things that are more expensive, which is not really the case, like for most of them, you're just removing stuff from your graveyard. So you're actually hurting yourself, right? So to a degree, but then if nothing else, it's very useful for its type. So it's a legendary enchantment artifact. So there is that. Arachnogenesis is here. I remember when Arachnogenesis was hot stuff, and now it's just like, oh, there you go, have Arachnogenesis. Overall, again, the whole play of the game here, this is why you have so many like great insects with flying and spiders and so on, by the way. See, like very expensive stuff that I guess you can cheat, and like it gives you ammunition, but again, I'm not ultra crazy for this deck. It's not the fault of the deck. Titania is here, but we have another of the Chase cards in here. Well, Chase, you get what I mean. Renan 7. It has Planeswalkers for the reason of having card types, right? Because it has a lot of like so far 4, right? Like it's not like, like this one is great, by the way. Land creature, Forest Dryad is like, yes, give me more, baby. Give me every freaking type of card that I can get in here. Exotic Orchard, the classics, Janowar Elves. The mana base is solid, although it's a 2-color deck, so I wouldn't be expecting, a horrible mana base. It's okay. You have some new cards from Duskmourn. New cards meaning, cards as in from Duskmourn, but not necessarily like specifically for the commander deck. And some of the classics have different art, which is something that I love always. Like what is the Commander Sphere sadly doesn't, which I feel like a missed opportunity. I can't find it for some reason, but this way you see the mana base. Reliquary Tower, Temple of the False God. They tried, at least I like to think that they tried to go with the art that is more flavory, or the closest in terms of flavor to the deck in cause for some of the reprints of like very old cards that are always in commander decks for the mana base and so on. I can't really find it, but Command Tower, there you go. Like Command Tower has a new art, right? They didn't do it with all of them, just Sol Ring and Command Tower, which I feel is an arcane signet. I feel these three are the ones that most of the times get the good treatment, which you're going to see in all the decks. But, going over the deck, which, again, I'm going to go card by card, otherwise, look at the time that have passed, and we're only the first deck. But for sure, I'm going to talk more about the deck when I'm comparing it with, its brothers, I guess. So let's move into the next one. But overall, the summary for this one is you really need to like Milling and Delirium. And Delirium a lot of times just feels like, what is this phrase from this, the Tarmogoyf, right? Like how big is a Tarmogoyf kind of thing? Like Delirium is the same. It's like, okay, let me count how many types. Like if you don't like checking your graveyard every freaking turn, then maybe this is not for you. Because just because of the trigger of your commander, you're going to change the status of your graveyard. So that changes the Delirium triggers. Because sometimes maybe you don't have the types of cards. So you need to always be forcing the Delirium. And sometimes you need to be very tactical, because if you pull, like, let's say that you have like a bunch of enchantments, a bunch of creatures, and maybe you have like lands too, right? So you have lands, enchantment, creatures. It's like, cool. And your 4 type is a Planeswalker. You only have 1, and you put the Planeswalker in play, then you don't have Delirium for the next turn. So you really have to wait for something in the middle. Now, then again, as you saw, like just picking half of the deck, most of these have multiple types, right? So that's not bad. Like that was very much on purpose. So you can, mitigate this to a degree. But anyway, now talking about arch enemies, we have Endless Punishment. Punish your opponents, make them pay. Now, it's funny to me that this is the most expensive deck. I gotta be honest. When I saw these decks, just, the art and the description and so on, this wasn't the deck that got me the most excited. Like, yeah, I love the art and the design of Valgaboth. Like, trust me, I really love it. But this wasn't the deck that got me the most excited. Maybe because I'm not too much into Rakdos, but I don't know. So as you can imagine, this is a punishment deck. Same logic here, right? Whereas Archenemy, you need to become the house that always wins with Valgaboth and dish out damage to all who enters your halls. Defend yourself with nasty creatures that heap on the hurt even outside of combat to see the new tenants evicted permanently. So let's see what's up. One thing that I am missing here, and maybe it's just me. Yeah, that thing that it wasn't crazy. It was like, yeah. That thing that I love about the commander decks that I always make a big deal about, which is when you open them and you see the bottom and it has a phrase that is like a pun. Don't have it. Naturally, because you're going to like rip it and don't say it, but kind of a downer. The Valgaboth one is not as pretty. It doesn't have like the art with the ghost and all that. It's just paint, I guess, which is cool, but Still a bunch of +1/+1s and -1/-1s, which should take you should lead you right into what this deck's about. Again, some doors, 1 black, 3 red, and the deck, the insert that we love. And let's see. So the sample, the quote-unquote deck box, which looks kind of cool, but that's only like half of it is because of Valgabond. I feel that a lot of the merch, even like the play mats and so on, are all about Valgabond, right? So I really do feel that if you don't like the guy, you're not like this set is not for you, like, at all. So deck, sample, let's see the sample first. There you go. Ghostly Dancers. Okay, not bad. It is white or yellow, as some players say. Flying. When Ghostly Dancer enters, return an enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand or unlock a locked door of a room you control. And it has Eerie. Whenever an enchantment you control enters the battlefield, and whenever you fully unlock a room, create a 3/1 white spirit creature token with flying. Not bad, very, circumstantial. And this one is very pretty. Again, but the foils in this set are very discreet, which I don't know if this was a strategical flavor choice or something, but so Withering Torment, instant, destroy target creature or enchantment you lose 2 life for 2/1 black. Not too crazy. And says, do not open, not a door. Bloodstained notes, sorry. So there is that. Then let's see the magical insert for Valgabond. Special rules, Arcanemy. So you already know all about this. The art, which is pretty. And they have, believe it or not, these are like 2 different arts. Like this one is like Blurry Air by Chris Cole. And this one is by Lai Setia one, which is more defined, right? So it's not the same. That's another problem that I have with Valgabond art, is that most of it looks the same because it needs to look like a moth, and it needs to be seen from the front. Weak and greedy. Centuries ago, the moth-like demon Valgabond heard whispered descriptions of himself from his imprisonment within the walls of the Vendrell mansion that weren't quite right. Valgabond was not weak or greedy. He only wanted the power that he deserved and the space that he needed to stretch his wings. And blah, 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 blah. You can read the rest. Pretty cool description. It actually gives you kind of a explanation on, what's up without having to read the wizard's story, which I recommend you read. I mean, I feel it's a lost art. One of these days, Wizard is going to be like, well, no one reads that, so we cut it. I'm going to cry inside. So this goes here. And now for the Arcanemy cards. What cards are in the Valgabond deck? Now, by the way, these cards are fixed, right? So the ones that you get with the deck are the ones that you get with the deck. These are not random, at least not to my knowledge. Maybe I'm super wrong, but as a strategy, it's kind of interesting because if you are really into these or like playing Chase, you really want to buy all the decks just to get like the full collection, which, trust me, it's cheaper just to buy the cards, but still, when will you learn? My crushing masterstroke. Fear my authority. Reality is mine to control. Running is useless. You exist only to amuse. I call for a slaughter. I will savor your agony. Your nightmares are delicious. And no secret is hidden from me. So not bad. Names are pretty cool. Is not mandatory. You can see the effects by pausing the video. Like, again, I like Arcanemy, but you really need to go into that mindset. And yes, it helps if you are the Arcanemy and you read the cards with that voice. even though it makes your throat all sore. But you know, you can't be the arch enemy being weak, right? So that's kind of how it is. So Valgaboth, beautiful card, and the Lord of Pain, which is, I like the concept. The art not so much, but I get the point. Like, it's not that the art is bad, I just don't like the art. Which, you know, I guess it matches, like it's working. If I don't like the art of a disgusting thing, so I guess that's working. So as I said, first things first, we need to check the tokens to see what's up. So Human Soldier, not necessarily matching. I love that Human Soldiers are like fairly, you know, common, and they don't try and make like Human Soldiers within flavor, or just soldiers. So Scarecrow, nice. Oh, this one is nice. Devil or Devil, Scarecrow, Devil, Scarecrow, Devil, Scarecrow, Devil, Scarecrow, Devil, Scarecrow, Devil, Devil, Scarecrow, Devil, Scarecrow, Devil, Scarecrow. So I guess you can imagine what's up. Like, we only have a Human Soldier. Everything else is like Devil, 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 Devil. Like, when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. So you see what is going here. Like, you see what's up. And if you're not, let me read you the commander of this deck. So, Valgaboth, Harrower of Souls. This is the most expensive deck, like, you know, in the market. Not necessarily because of the prints inside, but because people really love this strategy. I think, as you will see in a second, that this is certainly a deck. So Valgaboth, Harrower of Souls, for 2, 1 black, 1 red, is a 4/4 legendary creature, Elder Demon. It has flying, ward, pay 2 life, and whenever an opponent loses life for the first time during each of their turns, put a +1/+1 counter on Valgaboth and draw a card. So now everyone draws cards. That's no longer color tied. So you can see what's going on in here. This commander is kind of not descriptive of the deck. It is, but it's not. In the sense that it says whenever an opponent loses life for the first time during each of their turns. So not on yours. So ironically, having a 4/4 fly with flying is not the mechanism of torture here. Is the rest of the deck, which is interesting to say the least. So, you know, whenever it happens, you put a +1/+1, so it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, so you can eventually, yes, fly in. You can fly and keep getting hits in there, or just defend with it. And you draw cards, which is great. And this means that it's for the first time during each of their turns. So if everything in your deck goes correctly, that means that you get 3 cards before it's your turn, right? Unless, you know, they destroy something like Valgaboth. But, you know, 3 cards and then you draw. So in your next turn, you're already 4 ahead, right? That's freaking crazy. So not bad. Then the Lord of Pain is quite a different beast. It's a human assassin, 5/5 with menace, for 3, 1 black and 1 red. And it says, your opponents can gain life. I know it sounds powerful, but not really. Like, unless you're playing with someone against someone that has like lifelink, or, you know, really loves life gain. I wish I had this card when we had that like ultra long commander game, but you know, it's not as powerful. Like, life gain is actually, you have a nice contrast here. You know, it's like one of the first things you learn as a Magic player when you're like trying to get better is the best ability in the game is drawing cards, and the worst ability in the game is gaining life. It's not that it's like strictly the worst, but more cards means more resources and more things for you to do, and life is just that. So at least it says that the others can gain life. So, you know, it's okay, it's something. What matters is the next effect. Whenever a player casts their first spell each turn, choose another target player. The Lord of Pain deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to the chosen player. So this thing works as an extra card for Valgaboth. Backwards, not so much, but the Lord of Pain is that type of card. You have it there, and people are going to hate you, because whenever they cast a spell, you just point at another player and go like, you lose that much life, and you lose that much life, and you lose that much life. At least it's only the first spell each turn. Same here, like whenever they lose life for the first turn, for the first time each turn. So they are limited somehow to avoid this becoming a party. But you can see the theme in the two of them. That is, the table is going to hate you, and this is what I was aiming at when I was saying, like, well, I guess they are still my friends after playing, because this deck, I believe, is the deck that they were thinking about when they introduced the Archenemy cards into the commander decks. Ironically, since they have a shared life total, it doesn't work the same, but I guess it doesn't matter because each player turn and the life is shared, so they're actually more aggressive because it's only 60 versus 120 life points. So yeah, this deck is ideal for playing Archenemy. And if you look at the four decks, you can make the point that the four decks are to be had a Archenemy game. You have the bad guy with the everyone loses life kind of thing, and then you have you have a survivor, the smart, and the mystic, right? So you have the whole thing there to have yourself a Archenemy game for the very modic price of ideally like $40 a piece, so $120. But we all know that's not the case because decks don't have an MSRP and price can be all over the place. So let's see the deck, but you can already see the picture, right? Like, this deck is going to be a pain of a deck. Now, this deck is the most consistent one when it comes to the strategy of the deck. Like, and you will see with the others, in the sense that, yes, that one has a bunch of card types, and some of them have Delirium, for example. But here, everything is a pain in the ass, and I almost mean that literally. The newer cards, I get it, but then they just went and get a bunch of old cards. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, they lose 1 life. And you put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature they control. That's why we have a bunch of -1s. And then when it dies, if it had no -1 counters on it, it comes back with a -1 counter on it. So, very persistent Constrictor. Sadistic Shell Game. Same logic here. Looks like a Iron Maiden cover, by the way. So, starting with the next opponent in turn order, each player chooses a creature you don't control. Destroy the chosen creatures. Suspended Sentence. Destroy target creature an opponent controls. This player loses 3 life. Exile Suspended Sentence with 3-time counters on it. And then it comes back because it is suspended, right? So it is an instant. So the play here is to do it on other players' turns and trigger Valgaboth, right? So that's the whole thing. And you can see that's the theme, right? First strike haste, whenever a player taps a land for mana, if Barb Flare Gremlin is tapped, that player adds 1 mana of any type that land produced, then that land deals 1 damage to that player. So you may be thinking oh well, it's only like 1 damage here, 1 damage there, and it's going to trigger Valgaboth, which is just going to get bigger and you just get cards. So if you technically is not that triggering. You could say that the Lord of Pain is more triggering because every time or the first time someone casts something, you go like that much damage to that player, and that makes people hate you faster. But people will hate you with Valgaboth because they just see how every time you just keep making him bigger and bigger and bigger. But even if you don't have any of your commanders out, they will hate you because the entire deck is about whenever your opponent casts a non-creature spell, Gleeful Arsonist deals damage equal to its power to that target, and it has Undying. So even if your cards die, a lot of the new ones just come back. This deck is like sadistic Magic, the video game. You know what I mean? It's like even the rooms, like Spiked Corridor and Torture Pit. Like if a source you control will deal non-combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much +2 instead. And when you unlock this door, create 3/1/1 red devil creatures, the ones you saw, that when a creature dies, it does 1 damage to any target. So all over the place, I'm not going to read them all, right? But you can see from all of this deck, like if a creature died or just do damage or destroy this, it's a very annoying deck. Annoying is really the word. Like at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, it deals 2 damage to that player unless they sacrifice a creature. Like, yikes. Right? And yes, as long as your devotion to black and red is less than 7, Mog is using a creature. So, you know, it's not like the deck is broken, but the deck is certainly a pain in the ass. And you know how they say, like, some people, regarding the bans that we had, some people say, oh, well, if you play with all those cards anyway, you must not have friends regardless, right? Or like, oh, you have rule 0, so you talk to your friends, and then it becomes a valid thing. And to that I say, maybe, but honestly, if you play with this deck, if you play with unknowns at your local game store, that's certainly going to be a thing, unless they are tryhards or something, or they are masochists, or both, like me. But if you're playing with your friends and they are not into the mood of you being a pain in the ass, you're going to be the arch enemy. So I guess this is a mindset deck more than anything. They need to be into the mindset of, okay, that deck is about that, so that they don't hate you with all their might. And you need to be into the mindset of, they are going to attack me first. Like, you're going to become the arch enemy, unless there is another, by the way, Lightning Greaves, with the aesthetic of, the 80s thing. Pretty cool. And Lightning Greaves is very cool that it's here, because you want to put that in Valgabond ASAP, or anything else that you have, that those damage recurrently, right, to protect it. So they have a bunch of that. And whenever something happens, they have damage. That's the whole deck. Destroy the target creature, just destroying and doing damage. So if I had to summarize this deck, besides, people are going to hate you, that's kind of the summary in my opinion. Also, I think it depends on your behavior. So let's be honest here. This is not the worst Magic deck I've seen in my life, right? I've seen, like, I have, played with and I have made like decks that are a lot worse than these and a lot more unfriendly than these, right? Like decks that really make people go like, ugh, this guy, right? Like most of those decks, it really depends on your playgroup, right? Like, for example, the decks in my case that make people want to, pull their eyes out are basically don't touch me decks, which are decks that have like propaganda and barriers and shields and whatever. It's like, okay, don't touch me, I am playing right here, and whenever they try to attack me, it's like, no, you can't, and I just keep playing on my corner because I try to do some strategy that is very slow, right? So, and some people really hate that you don't allow them to attack or whatever. And some people really hate that they're just always bleeding. Valgavoth this deck is going to make games very fast. That's kind of how it is, either for you or for the table, because either you bleed them most of the game, and then, well, you eventually die, but the game, instead of being 2 hours, is like, 30 minutes. Or it's going to be very short for you, because the moment they see that your deck is all about pain, they're going to be like, okay, we need to get rid of this guy, right? So I feel like this deck is cool, and it depends a lot on your playgroup if it's going to be successful or not. But I do feel that this deck, plus the others, is like the whole Archenemy thing. And my theory is that, this is quite literally Nicol Bolas in more ways than one. And it's like, okay, so you have Nicol Bolas, and then you have the other 3 Planeswalkers, and that's kind of, which 2 of them were Planeswalkers, by the way. So, like, this is kind of how you deal with the thing, right? And as an Archenemy set, although very expensive, it's very cool to play like that. Like, we did one, and it's like freaking cool. And yes, in terms of flavor, this is the best deck to be the Archenemy, no doubt. But with a couple of upgrades, it can get very aggressive very fast. Even without the upgrades, the deck is just a pain. However, you may think that being red and black, the deck is all about like aggressiveness, but it's not really. That's something that I found very funny. The deck is about making it awful for others, but you technically shouldn't, like, the deck is not for you to attack that much. Like, if you see most of the creatures that you have here, including Valgabond and so on, you want them to be there, right? Or to like attack with them so that they are tapped, so that you can do stuff. But they have first strike, so you have some sort of advantage. But some of the others are just to be there, sitting and causing pain, right? Until they can even this one, being a 7/5, just being there is a pain in the ass. You want them as defenders, right? That's the whole thing. Whenever an opponent draws a card, if you control a red permanent, you may have a K-Direct Parasite, deal 1 damage to the player. So like, you don't want to attack with them. You don't want to defend with them even most of the time. You just want them to be there. You know what I mean? Just there. And be very painful. That's the whole thing. So basically, you cause trouble for them. You draw cards during their turns, and then in your turn you build your shit, and then you pass along, and you keep doing that. So when they try to kill you, you have some sort of defense going on. It's a very interesting deck that I have to be honest. When I just saw the box cover, back when they announced it, I was like, oh yeah, it's going to be like full violence thing, right? But it's actually very flavorful with a demon that is hunting a mansion, right? It's like it's just there, draining you, just causing you pain progressively. So very flavorful. Same as this one. This one is very flavorful too. It's like a guy that is just resourceful and has survived in the mansion for X years, right? So it's like just scrap to the graveyard, do things, scrap to the graveyard, do things, right? So not bad. Like I love it when they match flavor with mechanics, and if mechanics are new or new-ish, like Delirium is not new, but the causing pain to other players is not new, but the way they are presented is interesting to say the least. Now, the next one is Jump Scare. So Jump Scare has tricky instants and mysterious face-down cards, and Duskmourn, House of Horror, the whole thing. Now Zimone is from I forgot the name of the set. Strixhaven, I think, right? Maybe I'm wrong, but if I recall correctly, Simone is from Strixhaven, which is funny because then you have Liliana from Strixhaven in another deck, so things happen. Again, 10 Arcanemy cards and quick behind you. And it's funny because this is a Simic deck, right? It's blue-green. And you are supposed to invent the element of surprise with the Brilliant Simone and lay out face-down cards, blah, blah, blah. So, that theory that I shared multiple times on this channel, that Wizards sometimes makes decks in 2 parts, like they make the initial idea and they're like, we can do better or not, or like they are really looking at you or like looking into your soul and being like, yeah, you need to buy the 2 of them. If you buy the 2 of them, you kind of get a better deck than just one. That happened with the energy decks from Fallout and from Modern Horizons, and nice, by the way. +1/+1s and trample. Then green and blue. Although yes, this one looks more like a Simic than blue, but yeah, trust me, it's blue. Then the deck and the insert, which we love. Let's go in order. So, booster sample, the box, which is pretty cool. I have to say, without trying to be disrespectful to anyone, to any artist, but I prefer this art like a lot more than this one. Like this one feels more epic and more like Commander worth, which is what I guess the reason why they had it as the box art. And this one just feels like they are doing something in there, which I know what you may be thinking if you see this channel often. It's like, well, don't you ever complain that like you like some Yu-Gi-Oh traps and spell cards because you see the characters doing stuff? Same for Magic. It's like, yep. But when the art is more epic on one side, then what can I do, right? Like, look at this, it feels more epic, but also maybe quite more generic, I guess, but still more epic. So, yeah, Strixhaven. Yeah, I wasn't wrong. There you go. So, Simone is a brilliant prodigy who was admitted into Strixhaven. And her greatest weapon is her mind, which is the whole theme of this, which makes sense that she's, Simic colors and the deck is Simic. When the Duskmourn opened, the Duskmourn door opened on Ravnica, the ancient dragon Niv Mizzet assembled a variety team of journey to send the thread. Simone, be an expert on theoretical extraplanar spaces, went in there, right? So you have how to play the deck, which gives you a summary similar to what I'm going to tell you, but that one is like, I guess, more synthesized. Mine is more based on feelings and playing with the deck and so on. So, who is right and who's wrong? Well, obviously, I am wrong. So, sample. Let's see what's up. If I can open it. There you go. Cyberpunk, Cyber Edge Runners. Ooh, a room in foil. Let's see. Dollmaker's Shop and Porcelain Gallery. So 1 and 1 white and 4 and 2 white. Enchantment Room is a very beautiful card to have in foil, don't get me wrong. Kind of difficult to read though, but whenever one or more non-toy creatures you control attack, create a 1/1 white toy artifact creature token. And creatures you control have base power and toughness, each equal to the number of creatures you control. So you have a pretty good combo here. And the second card is Attack in the Box, which kind of matches the Dollmaker theme here, because it's a toy. Whenever Attack in the Box attacks, you may have it get +4/+0 until the end of turn. If you do, sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. Up goes the devil. So for 3 is a 2/4, not bad. I mean, with the option for it to go Super Saiyan whenever you need it. Well, more Kaioken, I guess, because then it goes up in flames. Okay. Let's see the Archenemy cards of this deck. Look. Plastic and gloves. If you want to feel like a magician anytime, just try to open things wrapped in plastic with gloves. Like the thing won't leave you ever. And you can just feel like a wizard, Harry. See, like it won't leave me. Or the or the stuff I have. See? Like, you're a wizard, Harry. This is the joys of static electricity, my friends. So, let's see. My Lothar Echoes. Nice art, nice name, nice everything. Power without equal. I am untouchable. Mine is the only truth. Your own face mocks you. Kneel before my legions. Which is, all of this is stuff that Valgaboth may perfectly say. So it's like, my theory is that, yeah, this was all built for that deck. You are unworthy of mercy. Chaos is my plaything. Your plans mean nothing. And you will know true suffering. It's pretty cool. Again, completely optional. You can use them if you want. If not, I feel that they're just like pretty cool cards to have, even if you just keep them in the envelope forever. Today there you go. In the joys of opening stuff without nails. Simone, Kian, which you can almost imagine that they are together in the same room, and the guide card that goes into the box. And the deck. Let's see the tokens, so you can have a guess at what awaits there. So an insect that just came out of an egg, so cool. Manifest. Worm, fractal, worm, fractal. Fire Action Beast, manifest, Fire Action Beast, manifest, worm, manifest, worm, insect, fractal, scarecrow, and beast. Nice art, by the way, sick art, and scarecrow. So you have a bunch of manifest. In my opinion, not enough. Because let's see what the commander does. So, Simone, Mystery Unraveler for 2, 1 green, 1 blue. You can see the commanders are pretty much balanced in cost. Legendary creature, human wizard, for 3/3, she has landfall. Whenever a land you control enters the battlefield, manifest dread if this is the first time this ability has resolved this turn. Otherwise, you may turn a permanent you control face up. And to manifest dread, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature and the other into your graveyard. Turn it face up at any time for its mana cost if it's a creature card. So, I mean, it's a Simic deck, right? So you can tell what is going to happen here. What I find interesting is this combination between Dread and Landfall. You know, the whole conversation about when they do a deck in 2 parts. Remember that deck from Thunder Junction? That was red-green, I think. That was all about also having cards face down and turning them around, etc. The deck was kind of weak, but the idea was kind of interesting because it felt like, well, you know, you were playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Pretty much, like everything was a trap card. But it was lacking speed, it was lacking trigger. So I guess they were like, you know what? We can fix this. And they mixed this with the Omo deck from Commander Masters. From Modern Horizons 3, that, you know, we did a review about that. You can see them in the corner or like on the bottom or whatever. It was also a Simic deck, and I actually like that deck very much. It's all about lands. Here is not about lands, but you do need, and we'll see in a second, mechanisms here to trigger landfall, but not only one time, because whenever a land you control enters, you manifest dread, right? But otherwise, you can unmanifest dread. So manifesting dread is cool because you basically create these things, and this is what I say that there are not enough in the tokens, but whatever. You have manifests, right? And they are 2/2s. You can cover a face-down manifested creature with this reminder card. A manifested creature can be turned face up at any time for its mana cost. So you have, at the very least, you get a bunch of 2/2s for free, because every time you pull a land that happens, you play a land, sorry, but what you want is the second land to enter. So you really want mechanisms to allow you to play more than one land per turn, because having 2/2s is cool. Cheating them out, that's great. And I feel like this deck, as you will see in the cards, does a decent job at this, and I actually quite like it because it mixes 2 things that I like, or 2 mechanics that I feel like, you know, are different enough, but interestingly can work together pretty well. But this deck can be upgraded like crazy. Like if you put cards from the Omo deck in here, boom, like right there, this deck goes like 100% harder, because you get a bunch of land cheating tricks, which is kind of what you need. Land cheating and heavy creatures. That's all you need in this deck. And, you know, it goes again with the flavor of the character, which is, you know, Simone is all about being inventive. So it's like, oh, here's one thing here, and then boom, it transforms into another thing. So kind of cool. The secondary commander, though, different story. So for the same cost, 2, 1 green, 1 blue is a 2/2, and it's a legendary creature, Illusion. As long as Kian's power is even, you may cast non-creature spells as though they had flash. And as long as Kian's power is odd, you may cast creature spells as though they had flash. Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on Kian. So Kian is not a bad commander it's not a bad card, but it is not the greatest commander for this deck. Like, it feels like they had the idea and they were like, well, it's now or never, right? Like, because, you know, playing with this deck, using Kian as your commander, it's not bad, but like, you know, like you draw a card and you put a +1/+1. So per turn, she's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And, you know, as her power grows big, your ability to flash stuff also changes. So that's not bad. However, the deck has some drawing power, but not that much drawing power. So it's not like she's going to go infinite in the deck. She can go, not infinite, but like she can go super powerful if you had like the proper engine for her. And casting most of these with flash is kind of pointless, really. Like, So I like what I'm seeing. I just don't like it in this context. I don't know if it makes sense, but as you see the deck, you will see. Simone, just the deck is for Simone, like, 90 to 10, more or less, like I will say. When it enters, if you control no face down permanents, return Glitch Interpreter to its owner's hands and manifest Dread. So that's one for free, and then whenever one or more colorless creatures you control deal combat damage to the player, draw a card. So this thing is here to play with the, because a manifested creature is colorless. So there is that. They came from the pipes, another one, right? So manifest Dread twice. Or a lot of cards here focus more on manifesting Dread. You may put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, then choose odd or even, which is like a theme in the deck, which is, I don't know, maybe I'm missing some flavor or something. But return each creature with power of the chosen quality to its owner's hand. So this is okay as a bounce thing, as long as you calculate your stuff. Obviously, the +1/+1 counter that they give you is to at least save you 2 creatures, like the one that you choose as base, and then another one to even or uneven it out. Colorless creatures you control enter with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on them, so cool. Also manifest Dread, and for each permanent chosen in this way, control by exile, then if you search your library for that many land cards, put into the battlefield tab, then shuffle. So triggers for the lands. The room is on fire. When you unlock this door, manifest Dread, which, trample counter, not bad. Then when a creature you control is combat damage to a player, turn the creature face up, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So you have more ways of cheating Dread than you actually have to play lands, like Shriekwood Devourer, 7/5 for 7, 5 and 2 green, right? With trample, and whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures, untap up to X lands, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control, or the creatures that we're attacking, right? Jiggling Skeeter Spike, indestructible. Whenever it attacks or blocks, becomes a target of spell, it does damage equal to that, which is, it feels like something that should be in the Valgaboth deck, but sure, why not? And has monstrosity, so this card really feels like it should go with Valgaboth, but for some reason it's here. Cackling Counterpart, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, which is, good. But, getting mana, cool. But you don't have, at least in the new cards, which is interesting. I guess it's okay, because we do have a bunch of cards in catalog to do multi-land drops, but we don't have a bunch of cards in catalog to do Dread mechanics. So I guess, right, then a bunch, you have some big cards in here, which is the idea that you are cheating big cards, but you don't have that many, because again, unless I'm missing something in the rules, and this is how we play it, so if I'm wrong, please let me know. But when you manifest, when you turn a manifested card, right, it can only be a creature. You can just manifest a enchantment, for example. It doesn't work like that, at least to my knowledge. I may be wrong, but you know what? We didn't check. You didn't check back then because it was on the reminder text, but we can check right now. And to the power of editing, yes, I can tell you that we were right all along. I just had doubts now, but yeah, basically, yeah, it's only for creatures. So you have some big creatures in here, but you may be tempted to see some of the other cards and be like, it's like, no, it doesn't translate to non-creature cards. So very expensive spells that are not creatures, kind of pointless, unless they have morph or something, which cool. But again, you don't have as many cards that you would expect to make you, drop multiple lands per turn. You have cards that react to lands, so you have a lot of landfall. Well, not landfall, but cards that say oh, if you have X lands, or each creature you control is a land, or blah 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 blah. But the only ones that I can think that are kind of cool are the ones that says every creature you own, like this one, right? For example, this one, no. Where is it? This one? No. This one. Non-token creatures you control are forest lands in addition to their other types. So they're still affected by summoning sickness. So when if you have a Shaya out and you play creatures, they are lands too, so that triggers landfall. So when you put your land and you trigger a creature, you cast a creature and you have a Shaya out, it counts as a land. So that triggers, right? But you don't have, like, you will expect that the landfall deck, because the whole point is for her to be the sole engine, but ironically, the deck is kind of self-sufficient. Like, obviously, if you have her there, like, out, cool, but if you don't, it kind of works anyway. Like, see, you have a bunch of manifest cards outside of your commander, and big ass creatures like World Spine Worm, just there sitting, waiting for it to be manifested, because you're not going to pay 11 for a 15/15. I mean, you can if you want, but ironically, in a landfall deck in Simic colors, this will be very achievable. But it's like, no. You want to cheat it out. You put it face down, and then you make it face up. Then when it dies, you have 3 worms, and yada yada yada. Then it goes back to the library. So a very useful card in here, and some other big boys in here, right? Like Arix Mythis, Slumbering Isle. So if I had to give you any advice, like, I find this deck very fun. You will see in a second where it sits when it comes to like preferences and playing styles and so on. But as it stands, I feel that the deck is good. The intentions are clear. The idea is cool. But there's a counterspell just because it's like blue. It's like, oh, it's blue. Just put a counterspell. Why not? You have some cards to like search your library for basic lands and put one of them or put some of them, right? Like, those tutors will trigger landfall. So, not that bad. Say Sakura Trivelder and so on. So it's not like you don't have engines, but you will expect to have more cards that are like, yeah, just put lands. See, like this one, Eureka Moment, which ironically, Simone is there, etc. It's like, yeah, put more lands, and that's kind of what we need. You have some landfall triggers, but not enough. So this deck is, in my eyes, very expandable. Not expendable, but expandable, or easy to expand on or upon. Because, well, Winter, you depend a lot on Delirium. So you need to have a bunch of Delirium cards, and then you need to have a bunch of different type cards. With Valgavoth, everything that does damage and is in Rakdos colors works. But with Simone, you need to strike a balance between landfall, big-ass creatures, and engines to put more than one land per turn, so that you can use her ability to the second ability to cheat cards. So it's a really tricky deck that it feels like really, really simic. It makes you feel smart for playing it. So I guess that's kind of the point. Very on the flavor right there. You need to balance that triangle of being like, okay, so I need to cheat stuff, I need to put more lands, I need to trigger landfall, I need to trigger this landfall multiple times so that I can cheat out stuff, right? And so I need to have big boys there, but you can have your deck full of big boys because the commander just doesn't work like that. So, very nice balance. So right now we have a very clear strategies. Delirium and, Graveyard and Milling, being a pain in the ass in the table, and just trying to cheat out big-ass things with lands, which leaves us with Miracle Worker. Miracle Worker has an Imato Veil Piercer, which used to be a Planeswalker, not anymore, and it says, see the future, cast miracles. When I saw this, I was like, oh boy, it's a Mega Man, because I was like, is this going to be in any way full with cards that I can use for my Doctor Who deck, the timey-wimey one, which is one of my favorite decks, favorite precons ever, period, and the one that actually made me a fan of Doctor Who. So thanks, Gavin. But no, it doesn't have anything to do with time, actually. Yes, you see the future, but it doesn't have anything to do with time. So we take the L there, but it says draw your power from destiny, and Aminato getting each of your enchantments at deep discount if the first card you draw manipulate fate to ensure your top deck is always a count to victory. So, what do we have here? Let's see. Same logic, same strategy. I love how each of the commanders has like a pattern, and that pattern manifests in the side of the box. I like to think these things are intentional, and I like to think that the person that came up with them hears these compliments and goes like, yes, someone gets it. Because believe it or not, someone had to put some work into making like nice packaging and so on, only for you to be like, yeah, okay, whatever, I don't care about this cardboard, I just care about this cardboard. And it's like, nah. So between all 4 decks, you do get the 5 colors of locked doors. Obviously, you get a lot more black because almost every deck has black, because Duskmourn, I guess. But, well, at least you get the... And then in terms of counters, well, a bunch of +1/+1s as usual. And then Summoning Sickness, Lifelink, and that's it. I guess it's Summoning Sickness. I always get that mixed with something. Let's see the Archenemy cards and the deck box and some of the stuff. So the deck box has a Minato in here, which I have to say, maybe it's me, maybe I don't get it. I'm not that familiar with the Minato. Like, I have that deck from her. I like the character. It's an interesting character for sure. But I saw that these are the art in the box, right? I was like, oh, okay, she's bigger now. Like, she's older, right? Like, because she was a child. And I don't know the lore, so I don't know if she's like a mystical entity that doesn't get old, or she's just, you know, a person that's a planeswalker and can get old. So I was like, oh, nice, time is passing. You know, like in Gorillas, when you see like, I think it's Lily called the girl? I like the music, I'm not that big on the lore, but like when you see the girl on the Gorillaz band gets older with each album, it's like, oh, time is passing, right? Because in the others you can kind of tell, but it's not as obvious. But then you see the actual card from Minato, and which we're going to get a close-up in a second, and she doesn't look older, so I don't know if it's an art thing, like it's just because of a style difference, or there was some communication in the art department, and maybe the art director was like, yeah, she's older now, and the artist didn't get it, or something. I don't know. Let's see what cards we pulled. Okay, so we get a Minato in in non-foil in the Minato deck. So cool. We get. Well, I guess you can say that this is more valuable because this one everyone gets, but this one you need to pull. So, and for once, yes, this card is 100% compatible with the deck where I pulled it from. So, see what I mean with the art? Here she looks a lot more childish. Maybe it's because of the art choice or something, but I don't know. I'm going to read the card because we're going to read it when we get to the commander, and then under the skin, nice art. The borders, you know, is a different thing, but Manifest Dread, you might return a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, and this thing is kind of compatible with the Dread deck, so not bad. Now, Magic the Gathering. Let's see the insert, baby. Special rules for Academy, Commander rules. Yeah, see? There's a close-up. She definitely looks more like a child here. I know that someone is going to be like, bro, you're missing the point. She can be any age she wants. That's kind of the joke because she's like a mystical entity of time and she can see the future. Like, I guess, let's see if the lore is in here because, see, like, here it's more like a teenager, I guess, I think. I don't know. So, I don't know I'm reading too much into this, but it seems like a very strong difference between the two arts, right? Fates, fortunes, prophecies, and destinies, these are all the things that the Professor Utonian did to create the Powerpuff Girls. These are all the things that a young and powerful Minato has foreseen, held in her hands and played with, because she used her fate-shifting powers to simply will it. Minato was sparked at a young age and left her home behind the Traverse Plane despite being a playful child. Her powers have granted her the knowledge of lifetime and a calm demeanor, blah, blah, blah. sending her after being desparked, which sucks, and losing her ability to enter planes at will. Aminato continued to follow her instincts to a mysterious door. The threatening prophecy of Valgaboth disturbed her. It doesn't, it doesn't say anything about her power. I guess that she can see fate, and therefore maybe she can change her. I don't know. I'm reading too deep into this. But have you noticed that the 4 flavor texts all talked about the same? Which is like, yeah, this person, Winter was already inside the house for 10 years. But Simone and Aminato were like, oh, look, a door. And they went in. And all of them talk about Valgaboth, which, they have to because it's about the house. But again, this reinforces my theory that, a game, like this is the only, like this is an Arcanemy set. You can't make me, like, they could make a deck out of something else that wasn't the star card of the set because, I don't know, this is like making a Thunder Junction deck and one of them is like Jace or something as the commander, which they will never do, right? So let's see. Oh, this art looks very Doom-like. Interesting. Choose your demise. Behold the power of destruction. You cannot hide from me. My champion stands supreme. Only I know what awaits. My followers ascend. Creepy art. If you hate mods, by the way, this set is Nightmare Fuel for you. Time bends to my will. I am Duskmourn. Ongoing scheme, by the way. My wealth will bury you. And a premonition of your demise. All of them pretty cool. Did you notice there is no rarity? Like all of them are common. It's like, yeah, no one cares. Like you will assume that at least rare, right? Because like you can only get them here or something. It's like, nah. All of them are common. No one cares, bro. So now let's see the deck. We see an angel there. We see a Minato. I call her a Minato. I mean, it's Aminato, but who knows? Well, the people at Wizards certainly know. So there goes the box. And what's in the box. And now let's see the tokens. So Angel, nice shift of pace. Treasure, nice hand. Angel, Glimmer, Horror, Glimmer, Shark, Copy, another Shark, Copy, which by the way, with a tornado, so you gotta love when Wizards gets like wink, like Sharknado, Horror, Copy, Inkling, Scarecrow, Inkling, which I feel like we need another Inkling art, people. Scarecrow, Glimmer, Scarecrow, Angel, and Treasure. So this one is all over the place when it comes to tokens. You will see why in a second. Now, Aminato, when I wasn't that excited about Aminato, I was curious because she was already a commander from a precon, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. When I saw how this card worked, I was like, that's interesting. Now, if the deck follows through, we'll see in a second, but for one white, one blue, one black is a 2/4 human wizard that says, at the beginning of your upkeep, surveil 2, which, look at the top 2 cards of your library, then put any number of them on your graveyard and the rest of your library in any order. Each enchantment card in your hand has Miracle. Its Miracle cost is equal to its mana cost reduced by 4. You may cast a card for its Miracle cost when you draw it if it's the first card you drew this turn. So this is pretty, in my humble opinion, this is pretty OP, right? Like, I mean, maybe it's not the most powerful commander of the 4, like in raw terms, but in terms of like playing with her, it fits my play style to a degree. Like, I like the card. It's kind of convoluted though. Like, at the beginning of each of your turns, you look at your top 2 cards, right? And you pick which ones go to the graveyard and which ones you keep. And this is important because maybe you want one of the 2, maybe you want the 2, or maybe you don't want any of them and you send the 2 of them to the graveyard, which, it's okay. You have black in her color identity, so you can get stuff from your graveyard if you want so, by doing some changes in cards or whatever. But then, each enchantment card in your hand has Miracle, and Miracle is its mana cost reduced by 4. Now, the cool thing here is everything has Miracle. That's freaking powerful. Now, the less cool thing is that it's enchantments only. Now, enchantments are kind of powerful in Magic overall, right? So it's not like, it's only like Planeswalkers or something like that. It's actually a very powerful and common card type. So not bad. Now, there is a thing that happens with this deck, and you really need to, like, it can lead to strange situations in your table, depending on who is playing with this, because the card that gets Miracle is the first card you drew this turn, right? And how can you track that? Depending on the player that you're playing with, right? Because if it's the first card you drew this turn, now for that, you will need to, like, draw the card and be like, okay, so I draw a card and have it like separated like this in your hand, or just have it like separated here or something, so that you can be like, okay, so this is the first card I drew, okay? So that, otherwise, if you are like, like Brian Kibler, and you will just be like, shum, 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 right? Like, it can be, like, it's your word against them when you say like, oh, this is the first card I draw this turn. It's like, is it though? Because if they don't have a clear way of knowing, depends on your table, right? So Commander is a casual format, so technically, like, you're playing with friends or something, it's not like anyone cares, right? But like, technically, if you want to be transparent and whatever, you need to come up with a way. Like, it's not that you're going to play it immediately. You don't need to, but you need to make it clear that that card is the first one you drew, because otherwise, that's, you know what I mean? Like, it's very easy to cheat with this commander or misplay. Let's call it misplay. That's kind of the but I like this commander a lot. The enchantments, not so much. We're going to get to that. The Master of Keys, I love the art. It's badass. For X, 1 blue, 1 white, 1 black, is a 3/3 legendary enchantment creature horror. So that applies, right? So you can also have enchantment creatures. Flying, and when the Master of Keys enter, put X +1/+1 counters on it and mill twice X cards. Each enchantment card in your graveyard has escape. That escape cost is equal to the card's mana cost, plus exile 3 other cards from your graveyard. So, not bad. If you play with this thing as your commander, the deck works, because the deck is supposed to be full of enchantments, right? So when you just use enchantments for everything, they all have escape. Instead of having miracles, they all have escape, which, is just a different way of playing. Now, it feels stronger to play with a Minato and like see the future, make it cheaper, see the future, make it cheaper. But because here is not really cheaper. You put, depending on how much mana you have, you mill that much and you get +1/+1s, but then your cards in your graveyard have escape, and escape is not cheaper. It's the mana cost plus exile 3 other cards from your graveyard. So that means that you can bring back enchantments that maybe got removed, which is very powerful. That's, I guess, why it's so expensive, but it's not really cheaper. It's actually the antithesis of this. This makes your enchantments a lot cheaper. This not so much. Allows you to bring them from the graveyard, but you need to pay the cost plus exile 3 other cards. So, I mean, exiling can be cheap if you just don't care about the other cards. It's like, whatever, because, whatever. And then just pay the cost again. So, not bad. I'm just not in love with it, but it certainly is compatible with the deck more than some of the others. Now, when you look at the cards, I really like that most of the decks all have a card with the commander doing something in the new cards, so that's cool. I like that. Very, very Yu-Gi-Oh like. So you have stuff like this. Return all artifacts and enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So kind of defeats the secondary commander thing. And then it has Miracle for 3 and 1 white. You may cast this card for its Miracle cost when you draw it, and it's the first card that you drew, right? So again, kind of the thing. The rooms are also miraculous because you had Secret Arcade and Dusty Parlor. So non-land permanents you control and permanent spells you control are enchantments in addition to the other types, so that's cool. Problem is that you only have one of these cards, and you know, if the entire deck is not already enchantments, then what's the point? And then whenever you cast an enchantment spell, put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to that spell's mana value on up to 1 target creature. So the second part, which is actually the cheaper part, is pretty powerful here. The first one in this deck, or like, if you do this deck properly and everything is an enchantment, then why bothering, right? Soaring Lightbringer, enchantment creature. So again, everything is an enchantment. Other enchantment creatures you control have flying. Now there is a question here. As you can see by the borders, everything is an enchantment. Now there is a point to be had here. If for some reason you're playing against someone that has a anti-enchantment deck or like anti-enchantment card, then you're done, my friend. But likely, you know, these are the new cards. I'm going to read them all. It has 2 rooms, believe it or not. When you lock this door, this room deals 6 damage to target creature and opponent controls. You gain life equal to that, which is okay. And once during each of your turns, you may cast a spell from your hand by paying life equal to its mana value, and so on. So it's like a, you know, duality there, but doesn't really do anything with the rest of the deck, kind of. Metamorphosis Fanatic. Ironically, not a... It has Miracle, but ironically is not an enchantment. So they try to put cards that are not enchantments, and as long as they have Miracle, right? So against that, I have not that much to complain, I guess. Again, if everything is an enchantment, you are in a weak situation, in a weak position against some things, right? Then you have cards like these that play beautifully into this deck. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you may draw a card. Terminus, put all creatures in the bottom of their owner's libraries. So yikes! And for Miracle you paid for 1, so that's crazy. Aminato's Augury. So a lot of cards here are Aminato related, which is good. I love it, and I feel we need more of this. Like, if you're going to give me 10 new cards, and you know the flavor is whatever, you just care about the function. You know, as designers most of the time. Players not so much. I care about the flavor. So if I buy the Aminato deck and then I have 1, 2, right? Because it's not necessarily Aminato, but Aminato. 3 Aminato cards, right? I'm going to be like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, it feels more like the Aminato deck instead of just like a deck that happens to have Aminato in it. Like, you know, the fact that it has at least some of the new cards are very obviously Duskmourn themed is something that I appreciate. But exile the top of your cards of every, you may put a land card from among them onto the battlefield until the end of turn. For each non-land card type, you may cast a spell that from that type among the cards exiled without paying its mana cost. So not bad, kind of expensive though. And it's a sorcery, so it's weirdly not compatible with the Aminato ability and not cheatable, so, you know. Other end, removal, and Entreat the Angels. Very powerful, very expensive, a very expensive spell. However, it has Miracle, plus the Miracle from Aminato. So you see where this is going. This is interesting because this looks like a Smothering Tide, and it's kind of, but not really. Whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, you create a treasure token, which is... This looks more powerful than it really is, you know what I mean? Like, this is not Smothering Tide, this is like, okay. Because the second spell each turn is not bad, because, you know, it happens a lot, but if this thing is there, they're going to be very wary of the second spell they cast, so they're going to just remove it right away. It's not awful, but it looks better than it actually is when you actually play it. It's kind of weird. Enchantment you control enter, so then you have a bunch of enchantment tribals, right? Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, create an angel. Enchantment spells you cast 1 less. So then it's just an enchantment tribal. and some things may have flash and so on. So, and some stuff, weirdly enough, is not an enchantment, which is like, what's up with this, right? Like, because this card is nothing special, and yet it's like there, I guess. Like anything else is an enchantment. Yes, as I said, I wouldn't go like 100% enchantment because just in case, But in terms of optimal strategies, yeah, totally. Most of your stuff should be enchantments, and they should be expensive things like this, right? Like Arvinox for just 3 black is pretty cool, right? So that's the whole magic of, well, the whole magic of miracles. Demon of Fate's design, the same. It only costs 2 black, not bad. Only costs 1 black, not bad. This here, only 2 black, right? You can reduce that cost, but like, you can see where they were going with the creatures and some of the spells in here. As long as they are enchantment creatures. Because anything else that is not an enchantment, there you go. I don't know what's up with this deck and coins in your mouth, but there is that. Ironically, Smothering Tide is not here. It will be perfect in terms of flavor for things in your mouth, I guess. And obviously, since it is an enchantment, even if accidentally, this thing is full of Theros flavor, and I love Theros, so for me that's a win. When you unlock this door, return up to 1 target creature to its owner's hand, and whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage, so you draw a card. The usual, right? Auramancer, enchantments. They have released some enchantment decks in the past years, so I think that the best one to put stuff in here is actually semi-compatible with this, because the deck is white, black, and green, which is the enchantment deck from Commander Masters, which is kind of cheap because people don't realize the power of that deck. And then there is another enchantment deck from Wilds of Eldraine, which is white and green, so only some of those cards are useful here. But like, again, enchantment is a very common archetype, and a very common setup overall. Arcane Denial, Archetype of Imagination, again, for 4 and 2 blue. It's like, nah, just 2 blue, right? So that's the whole strategy. If you want to improve on this, right, sagas also get cheaper. You just get a bunch of expensive enchantments and make everything enchantments. And everything that is not an enchantment should be something that makes your enchantments cheaper or makes your enchantment easier to come back or to play with or whatever. So I like this deck, and it's a very interesting deck to play with. We're going to see now when we compare them all, because we have reached the final portion of the video, the one that you can just click to and get to the conclusions instead of listening to me for like 2 hours straight. So, by the way, thank you for listening to the podcast. So now, let's talk about the decks. Is it worth it to buy? Well, it depends. Like, even from a flavor perspective, I gotta be honest, like, I guess that the only deck that is kind of tied to Duskmourn is, well, the one that has the beast from Duskmourn, right? The others are tied to Duskmourn in the sense that it's like, oh, they went through the doors, or he was living here already. But it's like, you know what I mean? So in terms of like flavor, yeah, Valgabond is the number one, I guess. In terms of flavor mechanically, I guess that the rank will be this. First Valgabond, then this, and then these two. They are tied, right? Like, one on top of the other doesn't mean anything. They are just tied. Because these ones, they can be in Duskmourn or they can be in any set and it will still work. Like, it doesn't matter. These two match the themes more closely, like Graveyard, Delirium, and Pain, and so on. So in terms of flavor, that will be my ranking. In terms of expandability, well, it really depends, right? Like, they are all very expandable. I think that Winter, in my humble opinion, the Winter deck is the less expandable. Why? Because Delirium is not that popular of a mechanic. And technically, and yes, you have a bunch of Innistrad cards with Delirium, so it's not like there are no cards with Delirium. There are some cards with Delirium, but it's not like it's one of the main things, right? So compared to things that do damage to players, enchantments, or lands, then yes, this is less popular. These three, though, interesting. I think lands and so on, it's not like it's a difficult archetype, but it's less common than enchantments and pain. I think that the enchantments and like doing damage to players, I think these two are more easier to expand on, even more based on the colors. I mean, Landfall with Simic is pretty easy, and Delirium with Black is pretty easy too, but I think this is the order based on the popularity of the mechanics, but this is just my humble opinion, it doesn't mean anything. In terms of how easy it is to build on top of these commanders, not the secondary ones, which we can see in a second, but which ones are easier to build on top of? Well, I will say this is the easier one, and then it's really tied to the thing, right? Like these two, I guess Aminato is the most tricky to build with, like in terms of, or like, let me rephrase this. How easy is to drive each of these decks? Like how good of a player you need to be to drive these from easy to hardest, right? So I think it's something like this. Like this, maybe, like, yeah, doing damage to your opponents is pretty easy. Just put cards that say do damage and that's it, it works. Cool. Delirium is tricky, like as long as you have things in your graveyard and you can count, it works. So, but you need to always be counting your graveyard, so this is kind of tricky. But this depends on three mechanics, right? So Landfall as a mechanic, putting more than one land per turn as a mechanic, and then building your deck with big boys, big chunky boys. And this one is all about planning always ahead and removing stuff and having enchantments that are heavy so that it's cheaper for you to call them with Miracle, right? So I think this is kind of the order. I guess that's why the Valgaboth deck is so popular. It's just nasty and easy to get. So it's like, it just works. It's like a Bethesda game, right? It works. In terms of fun that I had playing with them, and this is completely subjective, so bear with me for a second. Aminato was my favorite here, but without modifying the deck, right? This is without modifying the deck. Like, I had fun with this one. And this will be my order in terms of fun for me, right? I like this scheming back and forth, this is cheaper, this is my first card, miracle thing, kind of Yu-Gi-Oh! Heart of the cards thing, like choof, and you pull the card and it's like, there you go, boom, and you call a miracle. It has a good feeling for me. This one I like because, it matches the character. It makes you feel resourceful or smart, say, in the sense that it's like, you put stuff face down, and then if you manage to trigger landfall twice for Simone, you can turn them up, and you are cheating big cards, ideally, and makes you feel like savvy that you're cheating the game, and right? Valgaboth is just fun because you're a pain in the ass to everyone, but if that's not your type of knight, then yeah, I can see why you will avoid this one. And this one is not a bad deck, I just don't like milling and graveyard play and so on, right? So maybe not my favorite deck, but it doesn't mean that, in terms of table friendliness, which is something that we're introducing now, yeah, certainly this one is a bitch. Like, if you pick this one, by turn 2, you are the Arcanemy. Turn 2 or 3, right? Like, and the moment you put Valgaboth on the table, if you're not the Arcanemy already, you will become. Like, the deck, the tables very quick understand that you're just there to be a pain in the ass, and unless people enjoy that the games are faster because you're there like pew, 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 pew. Like, yeah, they will all turn on you. So the deck is thankfully built to withstand that, but, this is not a very people-friendly deck, right? All the other three, I feel like they are more like you're in your corner because you play with yourself, and take that phrase for what it is, right? Like, here you're just cheating stuff, you with you. Here you're going to, it's your lands, your cards, and your stuff, and here's your graveyard, right? So here you are like playing with yourself in a corner kind of thing. So these are like all tied for friendliness, and this one is like, no, you're just messing with the other players. So you're going to be noticed very fast with this. In terms of secondary commanders, or like, resourcefulness, Winter comes with Renmo, the Master of Keys comes with Aminato, Kian comes with Simone, and the Lord of Pain comes with Valgaboth. Now, for the secondary commander, or alternative commander, or whatever you want to call it, in terms of which one you can just switch the deck and it kind of works, Lord of Pain works, right? Lord of Pain is right there in the flavor. Like, Lord of Pain is just a pain in the ass. Renmo is a card that is in the deck, right? Like, it feels like it works, but it can be just in any deck. And Kian is just whatever, right? But if anything, at least Renmo talks about the types of card, so it is banking on the fact that your cards have multiple types, so it works. But Kian is, I don't know what Kian is doing. Like, Kian is like, her power is even or odd, and you have flash, and then whenever you draw a card, you put a +1/+1, and it's like, sure, thank you, I guess. And the Master of Keys is a different, quite literally a different commander. Like, you just, instead of things being cheaper from your hand, things are cheaper. Well, not cheaper, but you can bring back enchantments twice. So, bring back enchantments, period. So, not bad. So, I guess this will be the order in which they fit the deck without doing any changes. Like, works. Maybe, I guess it works. And, sorry, what is this? In terms of potential, all of them have potential, but I guess Kian is the one that is the most like, build another deck with Kian, because Kian feels like it will be amazing in a Simic deck that needs you to have flash and has a lot of card draw. This is not the case, so she's just there for a vacation, I guess. Like, she doesn't fit the deck at all. So, it is what it is. But now for what I think people, normal people, not me, will have more fun playing with. Valgaboth is a very special type of deck. So I don't know if everyone is going to enjoy playing with Valgaboth. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't like, a lot of people that play Commander don't like the aggressiveness of normal Magic, you know what I mean? So Valgaboth is kind of against that spirit, so I don't think Valgaboth is going to be like, very popular. But these ones actually, now in defense of these decks, except for Aminato, that is like 3 colors and is kind of there. But like, these ones fit their color identities pretty well, Like, Simic feels like a very inventive deck. You're always trying to do stuff and cheat your way out of it with cards and so on. It's like, this is cool. Golgari is just like graveyard and bringing stuff and just going to your trash, that kind of thing, and it kind of works. Aminato, is mixing 3 colors, so it's a different thing, but like, you can see the future and modify yourself. It works. And Valgaboth is just Rakdos. She's just always being a pain in the ass to the rest of the table for the sake of chaos. So in this case, it doesn't feel like it is for the sake of chaos, because the most of the cards are not like it does damage to every player, it just says to your opponents. So, it's not 100% Rakdos chaos, but it is Rakdos in identity. Now, for the final verdict, and, now you have the Academy cards, which, a whole other kind of worms. But for the final verdict, in my humble opinion, from worst to best, from best to worst, trying to be as impartial as possible, which is difficult. I feel, well, counting the entire deck, not only the commander, right? I feel like this is the order of the decks. Or maybe like this. Like, this doesn't matter. Like, one on top of the other doesn't matter. I think this will be the order. Trying to be as impartial as possible, knowing the entire decks and how they work and so on. I feel the Valgaboth deck just works. It's just very synergetic. it just works. Like even if you don't have Valgaboth out, the deck just works because the deck is all about creating pain. If you have Valgaboth or the Lord of Pain out, beautiful. But if you don't, beautiful too. And that's very likely that's going to happen because people are going to target them like crazy just because they multiply the fact that you are draining them the entire game, right? So, but the entire deck works for that purpose, which with Simone, I feel is kind of the same, right? I feel it's similar in the sense that it's like you have landfall, you have a bunch of landfall triggers, you have a bunch of big things to play with the Manifest Dread, right? But even if you don't have Simone, you have a lot of Manifest Dread cards in there to try and cheat your way by any other way. I do feel it needs some sort of Simic fuel because it has some, but it doesn't have enough for you to be able to, not cheat the cards, because maybe you can't because Simone is out, right? So, and you can't count on Kian. So, this is without making modifications. Winter, it works. Again, I'm trying to not be biased because I don't like milling and so on, but I don't feel you have enough Delirium cards in there to make it worth, but in their defense, you do have enough types of cards to just trigger Delirium or something like that. And there are other cards with Delirium, but I don't feel like the entire deck is playing that game. I feel like you have a bunch of Delirium cards and depending on the types of cards that you have, type of deck of cards, but then you don't have, it's not the entire deck like that. You have I will say that you have 40% of the deck is just black and green cards that are very black and green, and they work together, but it doesn't resonate with the theme. And Minato is kind of the same feeling. I love the deck. Again, by personal preference, this will be my favorite. But my personal preference, I will show you in a second. I don't think but it's between these two, right? Because I like this type of thing. I like this, and with modifications, all four of them can get freaking crazy. I feel this one is the most limited one, but these three can get freaking crazy with modifications. I can already see which cards from the Omo deck I can put in here to make it crazy, and I can see all sorts of enchantments to put in here, and this anything that does damage goes. So this one I like a lot because you need to play and back and forth and see the future and discount the card. But I can see this being a problematic deck for a lot of people because you need to always look at the future and always plan your next move and always find a way of saying this is the first card that I drew, right? Because some people get triggered over that, right? And that's bad. So right? So this will be my impartial rating kind of thing, thinking of most people and how the entire deck works, the most cohesive deck to the more scattered deck, but all of them are very good. This is not like the Thunder Junction decks that is one was very good, another was okay, and the other two were what decks. And even though the ideas were good, and this is not like the Murders at Thunder Junction. Murders at Thunder Junction. Which I guess, yes, in my mind they're just together because they are both boring. But this is not like Murders at Karlov Manor. That, the same, right? One deck was kind of cool, and then the others was sure, I guess, right? Here, I could play with all of them and not be bored, and I love them all, right? I this one less for personal preference, but I will even say that this is more balanced than the Bloomburrow decks, because the Bloomburrow decks are 4. They're red. You can see the video in the corner or down below or whatever. The Bloomburrow decks are great, but you can tell that there are some decks that are better than others by a margin. And here, I don't feel like they are better than others. I feel like they are just different angles to the same thing. And you can play like this, Arch Enemy, or you can just go. My personal preference, it will be something like this, right? Again, one on top of the other doesn't matter, right? So it's whatever. It'll be between these two as my favorite deck. This one is cool, and this one, whatever. This will be my personal preference, just by playing with them. And This one, I like, to be honest with you, this will be like this, like my favorite cards, and then these two as decks, and then these two as whatever. But since I often end up being the Arcanemy on the table, I don't mind this being the Arcanemy deck because like I'm familiar with the suffering. And if you want me to be very strict and have like 1, 2, 3, 4 preference, my personal preference will be this, right? Although maybe I wake up and I go like this, I don't know, because just playing with them out of the box, it will be this. But if I could change like 10 cards only, this can change very fast. With these ones, not so much. I feel like these ones I can change 10 or 20 cards and they will still be like the same feeling of decks, a lot better, but the same feeling. But these ones, I feel like if I change 10 cards in here, just 10, the decks multiply by crazy, because this one feels like, they had budgetary limits, and this one feels like they had budgetary limits, so they need 3 types of cards. Here you only need 1 type of cards, which is enchantments, and very beefy enchantments, if anything. But here you need landfall, cards that make you drop more than 1 land per turn, and beefy creatures. So that's a triangle that you really need to pick your cards properly for it to go balanced. But I'm happy to report that the deck works, because this was easily the easiest deck to be the last one, because it's very difficult to balance that. And out of the box, it works, right? So maybe sometimes it doesn't work as well in some games, but it works. So, that will be my take. Let me know down below what you think about this, if you like the podcast of the 4 Commander precons. And if you picked any of them, which one it was, and which one is your favorite, and if you agree with my experience so far, or you don't. I'm going to keep playing this with these decks, because for once I was really waiting for these decks, and this set the entire year is my whole vibe. But also because I'm really enjoying them. To be honest, perfectly honest with you, putting aside the bias of me liking the set, Thunder Junction and Mordor's A Call of Manor, those sets, besides all the drama that they had, etc., the Commander decks, I didn't play that much with them, because again, I feel like one of them was good and the others were okay at most, and some of them were actually kind of bad. Not because the idea was bad, but the entire deck was meh, like it didn't click. Then obviously we had Modern Horizons 3, and well, they had to put the big box in there, and we had Fallout, and we had Bloomborough, and so on. And in those, I feel like there is a better balance of like heavy hitter decks and cooler decks that I still play with to this day without modifying. But these 4, I can see myself playing with multiple times in the foreseeable future. And thank God, because we have until February so that the next Commander decks are released, because Foundations doesn't have Commander decks, I think. Maybe they release ones by surprise. And then January is just Innistrad Remaster, right? So in February, we should get the next set of Commander decks. So this gives us 4 months to play with this. Oh my God, so many releases. But, well, you get the point. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you had a great time. Like, subscribe, and all those cool things that the cool kids do. And I will see you next time on PAX and Recreation. Bye.